to be with you here today from the Trans-European Division. You know, the Trans-European Division is almost the smallest division in our world church, but you're very precious. And what we do at the division, because I don't think many people know actually, we're just kind of an office up there in St. Albans, not very far away, but we're actually here to help each of our unions and conferences become the best they can be, to deliver exceptional service, to train them, to provide resources, do things that they would struggle to do on their own, but we can do them there and then share them with everybody. And I'm always very happy to come and serve in the South England Conference. That is my conference now. I live in Hemel Hempstead. My husband is a pastor in Hemel Hempstead, and we were actually family and children ministers directors for quite a few years, about 10 years, before we moved on to Scotland and then came back to the division. So I'm very glad to be here. This mic, what's the matter? My mic is on? Oh, unmute it now. Oh, because of the other one. Okay. So can I take it off? Okay, whatever. All this technology, I'm not used to this. I'm an analog person. So what I'm going to talk about today is Sabbath, and how Sabbath is a delightful day for us. God made this day as a gift for us to fill us with joy and wonder. And if we go back in our imagination to the very first Sabbath, they didn't meet in a church like Willesden, wonderful as it is, but they would wake up. Adam and Eve woke up in the morning of the first Sabbath. It was their first day of life. Can you imagine? And what did they do? They met God. Obviously, they met him the day before, but now God says, come with me. We're going to see amazing things. I want to show you everything I made for your joy. And that's what he did. They would go round. He would show them the flowers, the colors, the different fragrances, taste the fruits, the different flavors, the textures, see the animals, the different shapes and colors and how funny some of them are, the fish, the birds. Everything was wonderful because it's an expression of God's character. And that's what the first Sabbath was like, that God gave to human beings on this earth. How can we reconnect with that? Do you know, a few years ago, I met a Jewish person, and we were talking about faith, and I said, well, you know, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. We keep the Sabbath too. And she looked at me and she said, you keep the Sabbath, but we celebrate it. And that really made me think, whoa, we're keeping laws and rules, but they're celebrating. What's the difference? Actually, do we celebrate? So it made me think, what are we doing here? What does Sabbath mean to us now, so many thousands of years after creation and the very first one? I want you to think of one of your most enjoyable Sabbaths. Oh, yeah, do you keep Sabbath or do you celebrate it? But I want you to think back to one of your most enjoyable Sabbaths. Can you go back in your mind? What was the best Sabbath ever? When I'm working with children and families, we make a certificate for our best Sabbath ever, when it was, where it was, what we did, what made it so special. And we need to ask each other that. Ask our children, what's the best Sabbath ever? And do more of that. And make it the most enjoyable Sabbath that it can be for us, for our children. Because we may have Sabbaths, and we have our routine, and we have our traditions, and we maybe stay many hours in church. But what is the effect on our children and our young people? Because what are the Sabbaths that they need in this world of high technology? What do they need that will provide peace and healing, lower their anxiety, lower their depression, give them joy and peace and wonder, the positive emotions of Eden that God made us to experience, joy, peace, love, hope, wonderful things, delight, laughter, and how can we help them to experience those amazing emotions on Sabbath? Because every Sabbath that is boring is another one that pushes them further and further away from God. What are our children and our young people experiencing? This needs to be a day that we look forward to. God gave us this as a gift of joy and hope so that every week, no matter how bad that week is, we can look forward to Sabbath at the end, because then we will go, wow, and we will experience his love and joy and peace. So, yes, are we keeping or are we celebrating? I'm not sure where the slides are now, but where are we now? So why do we keep or celebrate Sabbath? What are your top 3 reasons for Sabbath? If someone asked you, why do you keep Sabbath? Why do you celebrate Sabbath? What are your top 3 reasons? Think about them. And is joyful delight in that list? Because it's delightful? Or is it because you have to, because you need to do this, because you need to do that? Where is your delight in your list of Sabbath priorities, and why? When we read the scripture reading, we can often misunderstand it. God says in the middle, call it a delight. That means he wants us to experience joy. When he says, don't do what pleases you, it means just don't do your own thing. Don't just be self-centered. He says, I want you to experience joy in the way that I want you to experience it, because that's the best kind of joy for you, not the things that are just your fun, your pleasure, your distraction. But I want to be at the very heart of your Sabbath. I want to have a date with you as a person, face to face in our own way with God. So delight comes in real encounters with a living God and his creation. So if we read the scripture reading again in another translation, slightly different, the Passion Translation, if you call the Sabbath a delightful pleasure and Yahweh's holy day honorable, if you honor it properly by not chasing your own desires and serving your own interest and speaking empty words, then you will find the joyful bliss that comes from serving Yahweh. And I will cause you to prosper and to be carried triumphantly over the high places of the land, and you will enjoy the heritage of Jacob, your ancestor. So let's pause for a minute. Let's think about the delight about your last 2 to 3 Sabbaths. And if you had a scale of delight from 0, that's like really, really, really boring, and 10, like really, really, really amazing, where would you measure the last 3 Sabbaths? What score would you give them? What grade would you give them? Think about that. How would you rate each one? And what could you do, even if it's good, to raise the joy in your Sabbath by at least 1 point within the next month, and then maybe go for another point and see how you can make this day a day of delight for you and everyone in your family. Now, something we need to remember is that delights and don'ts don't go together, right? If someone says, don't do that, no, you can't, no, how do you feel inside? Actually, our brains get distressed when we hear lots of no's and don'ts. But we experience joy when we hear, yes, wow, let's do that. That's amazing. I recently discovered on social media, only in the last 2 or 3 weeks, a list of, people were asked to write a list of rules that were in their family. These were all Adventists. What rules were in your family when you were growing up? And by the time I saw it, there were 500 rules that people had been given growing up, most of which were not exactly like grounded in the Bible, but all of these don'ts. So I challenge you. I challenge every church and everyone listening to this. Don't have 500 don'ts. Do have 500 do's. Think about what we can do on Sabbath, because there is so much we can. Make it a day of, yes, we can do this. Let's try this. Let's experiment and see what brings us delight, because God has given us joy and laughter and creativity and wonder to help us experience life. And he is joyful when he sees that we rejoice in this day with him and we spend time with him. Even Disney has understood this. Disney make their experiences fully positive. And I see even the National Trust in this country does now. It doesn't say, don't walk on the grass. It says, use the path. This grass is resting, okay? Something like this, a gentle encouragement. If you go to Disneyland and you are too short for a ride, because for safety reasons, some children are, they don't say, oh, you can't do it. They say, hey, we have another ride for you. Come with us. We'll go on another ride, and when you get off that ride, we will give you a free ticket to come back and go on the big ride when you're bigger. Wow. See, they know the importance of giving children a yes, you can. Here's something exciting, not no, you can't. So what makes something delightful and joyful? What delights you? Because it's different for every different one of us. For example, my husband, what brings him delight, there are two things that bring him delight, apart from me and the family. One of them is running, okay? He ran the Milton Keynes Marathon a couple of years ago. No, I don't do running. No, that does not bring me delight, right? It might bring him delight, but sometimes I wonder. But he also likes paragliding, and no, I am not going to paraglide either. That brings him great joy. I'm going to wait till I get to heaven for that kind of stuff, because I understand gravity, and it's painful. So he loves this, but it's not my thing. I have my other delights, and we have to accommodate that. But we find things that we can delight in together. And I can honestly say our biggest delight together is walking in nature. It's so amazing. And it's so simple, but every time we go, we see something different, especially if you keep your eyes open for wonder. So during the pandemic, when we couldn't walk very far, I walked around the estate where we live. It's not an amazing estate, but I would take my phone and I would think, oh, it's spring. You remember, it was a beautiful spring. I would take my phone and I will photograph something of wonder and bring it back to show Bernie. And you know, I didn't think of any of the stresses while I'm looking for something of wonder and looking for what God has made. I would be looking at the flowers, the squirrels, the little birds, and trying to take the most amazing picture. I'm focusing on the joy, like we had in the Sabbath school this morning, Philippians 4:8, things that are wonderful, things that are beautiful, things that are pure and lovely. Then it takes away our anxiety, and it fills our hearts with peace and gratitude and love when we have those moments of wonder. In fact, even Harvard Business School says you should have a moment of wonder before every business meeting, even like in major corporations. Wow. Maybe we should do that before our board meetings and things. Because when you have a moment of wonder, it is humbling. It makes you more empathic and caring. It gives you joy and gratitude. And the more people experience positive emotions, the better the meeting will go, the nicer the people will be. So if even Harvard Business School says, have a moment of wonder, oh God, Jesus told us that. Look at the flowers and the birds. He told us, this is what's good for you. Do it. So there's all kinds of delight. So how can we set ourselves free from the devices and encounter God's creation more fully? Okay, maybe you take your phone with you and you take the photographs. Maybe you get your young people to make a video of what fills them with wonder and show different things, or interview people around the church. So we can use the devices to help the day be delightful and to share the wonders. But some families have said, we're going to actually put all our phones in a cage on Sabbath and set ourselves free from them. And even Jewish people and non-Christian people are choosing, we need to have a day off. We need to have a Sabbath from technology. And they are doing that. So maybe we can too. Although if our Bibles and our lesson books are on it, we have to, work out how we're going to manage that. But there are so many kinds of delight. As I mentioned, nature and wonder. Let's get back to the original Sabbath that God created for us and look at what he made, because everything is a piece of art made by him. And we just go, oh yeah, nice flower, nice bird. But have you really, really looked at the details, how he made this, how it grows, the colors, how it makes seeds, how it has roots? It's amazing. And as a young child, we went on almost the same Sabbath walk every week, but always we saw something different. I wasn't bored because it was the same walk, because you would see the movement of seasons and nature and see new things. And it always filled me with wonder, even though it was the same walk. Creative activities. So what are the creative activities that can fill you with wonder? Like drawing pictures of God's creation, because then you really have to focus on the details of it. Making cards and creative things to give away. Photography. Creative Bible study. So someone's come to our office now, and they have a wonderful way of doing Bible study. They read a story from the Bible, say like Jesus visiting Mary and Martha's house. And they give people different characters. Okay, you're Jesus, you're Mary, Martha, Lazarus, the neighbor, the disciples. And then at the end of the reading, she says, okay, Mary, tell us what you're feeling right now in this story. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Martha, tell us what you're feeling and thinking. Jesus, what are your thoughts? And it brings it alive. We all get into the story. So you can do something like that. Maybe writing music, or if you like to be outdoors and active, do active things outdoors, helping others with acts of kindness. There are many things we can do, and your favorite thing may not be on this list. But think what brings you delight, and how can that be part of your Sabbath experience? Or how can you adapt it or use that information about what delights your kids to make Sabbath the amazing thing for them? So Sabbath is an amazing gift to us from God. It's not just one gift, it's many gifts packed into one huge box. And he says, come on, open this box of delights called Sabbath, and see what's inside, because everything is for your blessing. So I'll share some of these gifts and see if they resonate with you and how you could help them make your Sabbaths more delightful. So Sabbath is a gift of a time to be refreshed by rest, not by sleeping necessarily, by doing something different than you do all the days of the week. So if you're inside all the days of the week, it's a day to go outside and experience God's creation. How does Sabbath refresh you and your children? Or at the end of the day, are you more tired than at the end of your work days? Which happens. I've been there as a pastor's wife. How can you use this day to refresh others? Not just you, but bring refreshment to people who are struggling, who are tired, single-parent families, or people who have some illnesses or whatever. How can you bring immigrants? How can you refresh them on Sabbath? How can you use nature, wonder, gratitude, and a slower pace of life to do something different to your everyday, so that at the end of Sabbath you all feel refreshed? Wow, that was good. I spent a day with God, with my family. My heart feels renewed. I'm reinvigorated for the week ahead. So Sabbath is a gift of a day to share the wonders of God's creation with our children, just as God did in Eden. So, yeah, immerse yourself in it. Really look at it. Even if you can't get outside, have things in your home. Look at your own hand. I mean, this is amazing. I have opposable thumbs, and my hand does like 1,000 things without me even having to think about it. It's incredible. We are incredible. We can be filled with wonder at what we can do. But also you'll have things in your house, your fruits, your vegetables, your plants, that can fill you with wonder. Or maybe, yes, it's okay to go online and watch a movie or, a documentary about sea otters or dolphins or what's in the deepest ocean or the greatest sky, because that's what we're going to study for eternity, how these things work. Sabbath is a time to share joy with others and bring joy to those who are disheartened. God has wired our brains that we get joy when we bless other people. I'm studying this at the moment. And when we relieve the suffering of others through compassion, God has wired our brains that we have that as a reward. It blesses us to reinforce us to bless others. So find ways to bless other people in your family. What can you do that's a blessing to you and your community? And think about how you can make a difference on Sabbath. So one of the things we do in our church is we have a food bank on a Friday night. And people come from our community to get food. We have 100 people every time coming for food to our church on a Friday. And what has been amazing is that as we have done that, people in our street have come to us. They know that Bernie pastors, and it's just around the corner from our house. And they say, can we come and help with the food bank too? And teenagers are coming. We want to help with your food bank because we want to make a difference, but we don't know where to start, but you're just around the corner. So as we bless other people, we are making a difference to our community. Sabbath is a day to share love, the love of God and others, and to grow healthy and happy relationships. We're so busy all week. This is a day to refresh, to strengthen the relationships of those closest to us. How to become closer together as a family. We can spend all day in church and barely see each other, even at lunchtime. But God said, this is a day to strengthen your connection with each other. How can you do that? And how can you show love to your community and your street? How is your family blessed because you keep Sabbath? How is your street blessed because you are Sabbath keepers? Make it make a difference. Then we can have active anticipation. Yes. What would make Sabbath so delightful that everyone would look forward to it? Have a surprise. For one time of our life, we would have a special Sabbath bag, a gift bag. And after we had a meal on Sabbath evening, there would be a surprise in the gift bag. And the children couldn't wait to see what it was. And it was something that we would use in our worship time. So how can we just plan for a bit of delight and make Sabbath extra special? So one thing we did in our family is we always found that Friday was a crazy day to get everything ready for Sabbath. As someone once said, only Robinson Crusoe got everything done by Friday, if you know the story. So we used to start on Thursday night, because if Sabbath is sunset to sunset, then Thursday night is a good place to get ready for Sabbath. And so we would all work together. Okay, we've got 10 minutes to tidy up the living room. If we can do it in 10 minutes, there'll be a treat. And everyone would work together. Make it fun. And then we had 3 kids, so each week, one of them would choose a Sabbath dessert and make it with me on Thursday night. They were excited to cook it and make it. They're all really good cooks now. And they were excited to eat it on Sabbath. Everyone looked forward to whatever was made. So Thursday was cleanup and dessert night, and it tended to make Fridays a little bit more easy. So how can we make Sabbath also a breathing space for ourselves and others, so that we can just kind of sigh and breathe out and relax into the beauty and peace of Sabbath? Small moments of wonder make the day special. One of our friends, her husband buys her a bouquet of flowers every Friday so that it looks lovely on Sabbath. Some people will light candles in their home, make special food. It doesn't have to be time-consuming. Just one candle, one flower. Even having the same soup every week that's special for Sabbath. Keep Sabbath simple so it doesn't burden you. And make sure that it's a time when you can all just pause, experience God in your life. Also, we have Sabbath traditions. How can we make them meaningful for the next generation? What are the Sabbath traditions in your home? And where did they come from? And are they still relevant today? Let's see if this works. There we go. Are they still relevant today? Because sometimes we need to create new traditions and find new meanings and involve our children and young people in creating those that are meaningful for them and joyful and delightful for them. So sometimes we need to modify old traditions or get some new ones. Some old ones are perfectly good. But each family needs to find their own special traditions because they stay in our children's memories and hearts. And when they are living on their own, those little Sabbath traditions, the memories, will come back, and they will want to light a candle or put on some Sabbath music or do whatever. They want to reconnect with that Sabbath experience. Maybe when they leave home, give them a little bag with things that they can use to make Sabbath traditions in their college room or wherever they are. And how does this Sabbath demonstrate, and your traditions demonstrate, God's loving character to our children? That should be the goal of our Sabbaths, that we pass on God's character, the wonders of his character, to the next generation, the children, the young people, and help them to fall in love with God forever. This is the goal. So we need to think about everything we do. How does it take us forward into that place? So make some special memories on Sabbath with surprises and treats, special worship activities, and children and young people need multi-sensory interactive worships. Even Ellen White says this. I haven't got the quote here, but I love this quote. She said, "Worship in the family should be short and spirited and lively, the best moment of the day." She says this, "When a long passage of scripture is read and a long prayer is prayed, it becomes tedious, and it's a relief when it's over." She said that. Wow. So she knows what it's like. She got bored too, and she wanted things lively. So here's a secret. I have written at least 2 books of creative worship activities. But even though I wrote them, I would get busy, and on a Friday, I'd be just tired out, right? And I would think, what are we going to do for worship today? Oh, no, I didn't plan anything. So I pick up a book, and I would go through, and I go, yeah, that's a good one. And then I would say to the children, come here, and I would send them to get everything we needed for the worship, okay? You go and get this, you go and get that, you go and find this. And then I would read what we were going to do when they came back. So if you're really short for time, this is a quick and easy way to do something nice for worship on Sabbath. And if we really were at a loose end and we were tired, we would say, look around the house, bring back 3 things that remind you of God's love and tell us why. And that is such a powerful thing. Or where did you see God this week? Tell us your experience of God in this week. What are you most thankful to God for? It doesn't have to be anything deep and meaningful. Like, these simple questions provoke spiritual thinking and questioning and develop it in our children's hearts. So gather their ideas, because children are so creative. Say, what would make Sabbath special for you? What delights you, and how could we find a way to build that into our Sabbath experience, to make Sabbath a gift to them and not a burden? You can give them some simple and positive guidelines so they don't choose things that are too outside the box, but invite their creative ideas. Let them help make the plans. One thing we used to do with our church was to go on a walk on Sabbath afternoon, and every family was given a different Bible story and a carrier bag. And on the way around the walk, they had to find things they could use to depict that story in nature on the picnic tables by the car park. So every family would make a picture from the Bible out of the things that they found, and then we all had to go around and guess what they were. And the children would tell the stories. And this was so simple. It takes nothing more than a Bible story and a carrier bag, and yet it helped to inspire people and bring them together. One thing we did in a church when it was wintertime is we made a New Jerusalem. And every family had a shoebox, and there were lots of craft materials. And every family turned their shoebox into a house for the New Jerusalem. And it was amazing what they did. And we thought, what would you need in the New Jerusalem? You probably don't need a dishwasher. What else might you not need? What would you really want there? And then we laid out golden paper to make the roads. And we had white pearly balloons to be the gates and things. And we made a New Jerusalem together. And the children loved it. And they came back and added to it time after time. So if you're stuck for ideas for Sabbath, I don't normally promote my own books, but there are not many around about this topic. So this was a book that I wrote, 100 creative activities for Sabbath. And actually there's 200, because for nearly every idea there's an alternative. There's even there how to make a Sabbath backpack, things you need to put in a backpack that you can grab when you go on a walk, with some books of telling you what things are, some magnifying glasses, some little bags to carry things in, snacks for the journey, to make the walk really interesting too. Or send children on a scavenger hunt. Get them to find things that remind them of Bible stories and put them in a little bag and come back and tell you what they are. So start a file, a folder, or a bulletin board in your church for Sabbath ideas. Use some ideas from this. Put them in your bulletin so that families have ideas, because sometimes we just get stuck into our routine and it's hard to think. We also were in a church where different families would organize a special Sabbath activity and invite other families. So in groups of maybe 5 families, you were only planning something once a month or something like that. And I saw on your bulletin that you have a family worship every other week in the church. I'm not sure what that's like, but some churches do that. They plan a really good family worship for everyone to come together. So invest in the best, because there are so many good Sabbath games, books, and activities your family will enjoy. Find out where the best local walks and parks are, where you can explore God's creation. My husband has an app called All Trails, and he takes us on a different walk every time, and it's amazing, the places near us. I always want to go through a forest, so he knows there has to be at least 20 meters of forest to keep me happy. But parks in London are amazing. Buy Bible crafts from Baker Ross or other craft companies or online. And there's a company called Ben and Hannah Dunnett, and they do beautiful jigsaws. And in the design of the jigsaws, there are Bible verses. So as you're putting the jigsaw together, the children are looking for the words and they're learning the Bible verses. Make videos with your teenagers to show in the worship service. Say, hey, in a month's time, we're doing a church worship on this topic. Go and make a video together and get them to work on it, or make a play, a drama or something. And start a Sabbath library at church so families can borrow good books and games and activities so that you help them invest in the best, because when we invest in Sabbath, we are investing in eternity. So follow their interests. And maybe they want to lead worship, help somebody, pause and pray, light a candle. Follow their promptings. The Holy Spirit is moving them. Follow their ideas. Maybe they have a desire to help at church, in the music team, the AV team, creative arts, tidying up, making lunches and drinks. Involve them. Make Sabbath a day that they look forward to because they have a special responsibility here. Maybe they're passionate about a mission or caring for others, refugees, homeless people, social justice, caring for the planet. Support them in their passions and make it happen. There's things that you can do on Sabbath. I mean, some churches will even go and do cleanup of areas on Sabbath. They will pick up the litter to make the world a more beautiful place for their community. When our church in Hemel did that, many people from the community said, "Tell us when you do it again. We want to join you in this. We are so proud of what you are doing." It was a huge witness. And then we can think about sunset reflections. Because even if your week has been busy, and we don't always have time to do family worship every day, that's the reality of life. But just stop and ask these questions, and you will spark the spiritual thinking of your children. What do you want to thank God for this week? What was the most joyful moment in this week? Let's celebrate it together and thank God. What was the saddest moment? Let's comfort you, because God is comforting you too. Where did you see God at work this week? What was he doing? Where did you see him? Maybe in a smile. Maybe someone came to help you. Maybe you saw God in a sunset. Let's talk about this. Because when children know you'll ask that question every day or every week, where did you see God today or this week? They are looking. They are looking. It shapes their perspective because they want to have something to bring back to you when you ask the question. And I saw you make, what did you learn about God's love this week? One time it was New Year's and everyone's thinking about New Year's resolutions. And I asked God, what should I be thinking about this year? And it came to my mind, pray that your picture of my love will be expanded. And it's been amazing how much more I have understood about God once I started to pray that prayer. And tell your children, I saw you making a good choice this week. I'm proud of you. Your character grew this week. You became more like Jesus. So I would say the world needs Sabbath more than ever before, because this world is crazy. People are just so busy. And we have an enormous gift we can give them. This Sabbath is incredible. And there are some churches that have a Sabbath club. And so imagine if tired out, stressed people could become part of an activity with you. It doesn't need to be in the church. That might be a little distracting for them at first. But say, we're going to meet in a park. We're going to go for a walk. We're going to do this thing to help the community. We're going to have a creative session and have people come and restore their minds and souls by doing things that bless them and bless others. And slowly, slowly, they might come to understand the blessing of Sabbath for themselves. So we can offer these delightful experiences and help people to... The battery's gone. I will just carry on. So give them free Sabbath experiences. Invite people into this day. Make this special space that people can share Sabbath with you and see the benefits. Because every time, every delightful Sabbath is a taste of the wonders and delights of heaven. In the earth made new, every day will be a delight, and every Sabbath will be out of this world. But we can start now. Let's not wait just for heaven. This can happen, heaven on earth, in every Sabbath with us, our children, and our families, when we focus on making it a day of delight. How do you think we will spend Sabbath in the earth made new? And how do you think we can taste that delight today with our children and families? So I hope this has opened your mind to think of new possibilities. And I want you to think, what ideas are you taking away to help you plan more delightful Sabbaths? What would make Sabbath the best day of the week for everyone in your family? And how can Sabbath expand people's understanding of God's love for them and his incredible character for eternity? Amen.